Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kennedy Report special edition here. Pope Francis might be resigning from the head of the Catholic Church. The Pope may be resigning. We might have two popes, uh, emeritus, Pope emeriti, I guess, Pope Benedict and Pope Francis. Will they be roommates? Who knows? This is not just some unsubstantiated rumor. There have been certain intuitions of certain commentators that they think Pope Francis might be resigning because he might be sick or something like that. But this is actually out in the mainstream press, and we don't trust the mainstream press for a lot of reasons. But as a journalist, someone who spends my days dissecting what the mainstream press is saying, I can tell you that there are reasons to believe that this is actually pretty significant. We'll go over why that is in just a moment. First, I want to say thank you to my sponsor, Noble Gold. It's time to set goals for the next cycle of inflation. This way, you're moving forward always. You're growing, you're making money, you're not losing it. Imagine having more financial freedom. This gives you the opportunity to have more fun. Start a gold IRA with Noble Gold now and fight inflation. This month, for every IRA above 20K, you'll get an incredible 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin completely free as a thank you. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold. Call 1-877-646-5347. That's 1-877-646-5347. Call that number now to find out more or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. There's uncertainty in the papacy. There's uncertainty in the world. Joe Biden, Justin Trudeau, these are the people who are in charge of your economies. You should probably get something that won't leave you in the lurch. Thank you again to Noble Gold. Okay, so I'm going to share on my screen here. There is a tweet here from Raymond Arroyo. I do speak Spanish, so I should be able to say Arroyo better. But anyway, here it is, and I'll make sure there it is. So, rumors abound that Pontifex could resign after an announced visit to L'Aquila. Pope Celestine V, who resigned, is buried there. Pope Benedict XVI visited before his resignation, but the Pope's wheelchair may say more about his resignation than the visit. So, why is this significant? Well, Raymond Arroyo is obviously the most well-known, he's the most well-known Catholic news journalist in the English-speaking language, at least, probably one of them in the world, considering the market is so big in America. He would not be posting something that was not at least probable. And I'll explain why that is. So I think Raymond Arroyo is a great journalist, but, I study the mainstream media for a living. And what I mean by that is every day I'm looking through all of the alphabet networks in Canada, CTV, CBC, etc. I'm reading NBC, CNN, all the different ones, all the different short forms. And one thing I've realized from reading them, sometimes they do outright spread falsities. But even when they spread falsities, they're done for very particular political reasons, and they're based on things that are unverifiable, but also unverifiable in the other way. So think about, for example, the Russia hoax, right, about Donald Trump. That was wrong, but it was based on a real thing that was fake, if that makes sense. When it comes to rumors about whether Pope Francis will resign or not, look who else, and we'll see here, who is actually sharing this information. So we had, as we can see here, if you're just joining us, there are rumors that Pope Francis will resign. Raymond Arroyo tweeted that. Raymond Arroyo would not be tweeting that if it wasn't substantiated. The Vatican, you have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, the Vatican is a nation state. Besides all the corruption, I'm not talking about that here. I'm just saying this is how it would work. The Vatican is a nation state. It has a government. The Pope is the head of the Vatican's government. He's the head of a nation. He's the head of the church, but he's literally the head of a nation state. Nothing like this gets out there to the mainstream networks that we'll see in a second here, if it's just a matter of opinion. If you Google Pope Francis resigning, you can find a bunch of stuff from 2021, which is from a bunch of just different blogs. Sure, you'll find, Pope Francis is going in for surgery. Does this mean he's going to resign? So-and-so comments on it. But it's just blogs. It's just people's opinions. Now what we see is we actually see Raymond Arroyo, who's the head of the sort of the most well-known English-speaking Catholic journalist in sort of the mainstream world. Patricia Tremblay says, I trust Raymond Arroyo as Mother Angelica did. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think Raymond Arroyo was pretty great. I mean, I don't know. I think he does a good job. He's also on Fox. And again, you can think different things about these networks, but they hire people who have a certain level of journalistic integrity, again, which I study. I analyze this stuff for a living. Right here, I'll share this tab with you as well. Here is Pope Francis retirement rumors. So this is from today, June 5th. Okay. This is from the Associated Press. This is not some little, opinionated blog. This is from a mainstream thing. Again, mainstream media, they're always twisting the truth, but I can tell you there are laws around reporting things. When they're going to report something, excuse me, when they're going to report something and they're going to have, tax breaks because they're a news organization, all these things work. They have standards they have to follow. Now, the mainstream media spins the truth into a lie. Like they'll show you, they'll say studies show that if you have a dog, it's better if you're a vegan. And it's like, it makes no sense. But when they press the link, there is a study that was done where some crazy person at a university sort of said that in the footnotes of a study. They didn't technically lie. That's how they get away with this stuff. So my point is they go to, they have these editorial boards. They go to great lengths to make sure that what they're sharing is actually verifiable. Okay, so upcoming trip by Pope Francis has rumors swirling about his future at the Vatican. Pope Francis added fuel to the rumors about the future of his pontificate by announcing he would visit the central Italian city of L'Aquila in August for a feast initiated by Pope Celestine V, one of the few pontiffs who resigned before Pope Benedict XVI stepped down in 2013. Italian Catholic media have been rife with unsourced speculation that the 85-year-old Francis might be planning to follow in Benedict's footstep, given his increased mobility problems that have forced him to use a wheelchair for the last month. Key word here, where it says unsourced speculation. Personally, what I think has happened, why this is getting in the mainstream media, it's also here in the LA Times. They're reporting it as well. Okay. And I believe it's just the same story. Okay. Sorry, you didn't see that anyway. But the point is, it's in the LA Times as well. Unsourced speculation. Personally, I think the Vatican's press arm has sent out a memo. I think that, a message has been dropped in their lap. I think this is like when, I think this is kind of like when your government's going to drop some sort of restriction and they're not going to drop it. And all of a sudden it's like, so-and-so came out and said that they're reviewing things. Could this spark an end to X, Y, and Z? It just comes out of nowhere. It's when they decide it will happen. Now, there's more here. It talks about his cardinals that he elected. One of the things that it opines is that of the 83 of the 132 voting age cardinals, Francis has elected them. There's no guarantee, as the article says, that the cardinals will vote in a certain way, but the chances that he will be able to sort of make a successor, that seems pretty clear that that's likely. Although that hasn't always worked out historically in the church. There have been many popes and cardinals and so forth who have thought they had it all in the bag. And then, the office of the papacy has a real thing. Look into the story of St. Thomas Becket, for example. He wasn't even really seen to be that good of a guy before he was made a bishop. He was ordained and made a bishop by the request of, I believe, the request of the king. I might be wrong on that. Don't shoot the messenger. But anyway, the office changed him. The grace of the office changed him. So there was actually rumors that Leo the 13th was a liberal, and the grace of the office changed him as well. So anyway, that's whether there's speculation about what the next pope will be like, I don't know. But the reason why this is in the Associated Press is because I think this is pretty verifiable. And it says, notable was the timing. The Vatican and the rest of Italy are usually on holiday in August to mid-September, with all but essential businesses closed. It's true. Italy's pretty good that way. Calling a major consistory in late August to create new cardinals, gathering churchmen for 2 days of talks on implementing his reform and making a symbolically significant pastoral visit suggests Francis might have out of the ordinary business in mind. Here's the thing. Pope Francis is very immobile right now. Okay, there's the picture here of him in his wheelchair. You can see he's very immobile right now. It's getting worse day by day. He's got diabetes. I think he's got that one of the insulin thing. He's 85 years old. He's not a spring chicken. He's not healthy in the traditional sense. I mean, if he didn't have the best doctors on earth, he probably wouldn't still be alive. I mean, that's a reality. Why would he schedule a trip in August when everyone's on vacation when he's in a lot of pain? To be honest, maybe he might not even come to his June trip, July trip, I think it is, in Canada. That's scheduled tentatively. He might not even make that. But here's the thing, okay? Francis said in 2015 that he was going to have a short pontificate. And I'll share that article with you right here. I remember reading this back then, and I forgot about it, and I was able to find it. And it's right here. It's from Reuters from 2015. If you can see that right there, March 13th, 2015. Pope on anniversary believes he will have short pontificate. So this was from Reuters in 2015. It says, Pope Francis said in an interview published on Friday, he believes his pontificate will be short and that he would be ready to resign like his predecessor rather than ruling for life. In the long interview with Mexican broadcaster Televisa, released on the second anniversary of his surprise election, Francis also said he did not mind being Pope, but would like to be able to go out in Rome unrecognized for a pizza. That's classic Francis effect stuff. I have the feeling that my pontificate will be brief, 4 or 5 years, even 2 or 3. Well, that was longer than that. Obviously, it's been almost 10. 2 have already passed. It's a somewhat strange sensation, he said, according to a Vatican translation from Spanish. I feel that the Lord has placed me here for a short time. Francis, apparently in good health at 78, that's greatly deteriorated since then, said, I share the idea of what Benedict did. In 2013, former Pope Benedict became the first head of the Roman Catholic Church in 600 years to resign instead of ruling until he died. In general, this is Pope Francis, I think what Benedict so courageously did was to open the door to the Pope Emeritus. Benedict should not be considered an exception, but an institution. That's very important. I'm going to read that again. In general, I think what Benedict so courageously did was to open the door to the Pope Emeritus. So opening the door for this new way of being Pope Emeritus. Benedict should not be considered an exception, but an institution. Anyway, it goes on with a bunch of things from the interview about social justice and pizza. But Pope Francis has said before that he believes that he would have a shorter pontificate and that he wouldn't want to go into his old age. He's very much a utilitarian. Of course, he's very much a liberal in his pontificate and whatever. So I don't see him doing the whole JP2 thing and doing it until he croaks. I don't think that's going to happen. He said that he probably wasn't going to do that anyway. Things were going pretty hunky-dory for a while. Who knows if he wanted to resign during the whole lockdown stuff, but people kind of got hypnotized by that. But we have it on record that Pope Francis said that he wanted to resign rather than go to the end. And he said that Pope Benedict gave the example and that it should be the institution, which is him saying that's actually a good way to do it. Now, he can't really change that forever, I don't think. But it seems that Pope Francis is set to resign. Now, what is this going to mean? We're going to have, if this happens, who knows? This could be just a bunch of confusion. But again, if you're just joining us right now, the reason why I think that this is fascinating, as a journalist myself, studying this stuff for a living, the reason I think this is fascinating is because the Associated Press, this is not like, rightwingcatholicblog.blogspot.com or something that is just opining about things. Or even, you found stuff in some decent Catholic outlets that were sort of just opinion pieces a couple years ago when he was having some surgery or something. Nothing gets out of Rome by accident in the way that this is. This isn't like some revelation that was unearthed. This is out of nowhere, why would the Associated Press, of all places, be saying that rumors about Pope Francis? There's been rumors about Pope Francis resigning for a long time. You can look up Pope Francis resigning. You'll find rumors all over the internet from blogs and again, decent religion blogs or something. But this is very curious. And I know that it's easy to beat up on Francis and everyone sort of, he hasn't been the greatest pope we've ever had, although I believe he consecrated Russia properly. So that is pretty great. But of course, there's been major issues and it's been very difficult. And my buddy Sarmad says, guys, like the video. It helps with the algorithm. It's true, it does. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And go to our sponsor, Noble Gold. But anyway, so what was I saying there? Yeah, there's been rumors about him resigning for a long time. But again, the Vatican is a nation state. Things do not happen really accidentally when it comes to this. I would believe that he's probably setting the stage for resignation. And as I was saying, yes, it's easy to sort of beat up on Francis and he's been so liberal and whatever and fine. I don't really have this desire to do that, to be honest. It's kind of not my favorite thing to do. But he is still the Pope of the Church, and Providence is a funny thing that affects everybody. You don't get to skip out on Providence. And there are plenty of places he could visit for a pilgrimage. I mean, he's going to do something special in August. Why doesn't he go to, I don't know, wherever? There's 1,000 different places he'd go. Francis goes everywhere. But he's going to go to the tomb of Saint Celestine V, where the last pope to go there was Benedict XVI, just before he resigned, and it was symbolic. I'm going to pray for the intercession, whatever it was, for the guidance or strength to do this. I mean, Francis is a spiritual man. He prays. You can tell. I mean, again, his theology leaves something to be desired, but obviously there's moments where you can tell the man is praying. I mean, he is the Pope. I'm sure he has a spiritual life. And whatever flaws he may have in his theology and the way that he's governed the church, I'm sure he is, trying to do something here. And I don't think these symbols are an accident. Even Paul VI, if you read Father Murr's recent book, Murder in the 33rd Degree, where it talks about, Freemasons in the church, it's a great book. He's got firsthand witnesses who were close with Pope Paul VI, and they said, listen, Pope Paul VI was a deeply spiritual man. He made grave mistakes governing the church, but he was almost a mystic. He just lacked courage. He had bad people around him, and he made bad decisions. He really did. But he was profoundly spiritual and spent hours and hours in prayer all the time, meditation and so forth. From what we've seen about Pope Francis, again, he's the Pope. He's praying for guidance on how to do this. So going to St. Celestine, I don't think that is a coincidence. And as he said, we read that article earlier in the stream, that he said what Pope Benedict did in 2013 was not just some anomaly, but an institution. This means, he speaks Spanish. If you speak Spanish, what he's trying to say is this was the new normal. Well, I hate that term, but this is the way that it should be done, according to Pope Francis. And that makes perfect sense because he's a utilitarian in a lot of ways. It's about, the gospel of Pope Francis has been very much an earthly, worldly gospel. It has been about climate change, and it's been about, the economy in a very material sense. So it's been about things that are useful to people. He looks at the world as needing, improvements on things that are useful. And I think that he would not exclude himself from that analysis. Okay, so if you're just joining us now, well, we're going to end in a couple minutes here, so perhaps go to the beginning of the stream. But Pope Francis, there are rumors he's going to be resigning. They seem pretty substantiated. It's not from some offshoot blog. They seem pretty legit. Mainstream sources. Again, as a journalist, I've checked these sources thousands of times for writing articles. I kind of know what to look for. If this is not legit, and then it's really strange that places like that, because I can tell you, we have meetings at LifeSite News every day, and we're going over all this stuff, and we've got 50 potential stories, and we pick like 11 of them because we know which ones are sourceable, and is this going to match with our journalistic integrity and things like that. So I can't see it as being just a lark. Okay, a couple questions in the comments here. Someone says he's still going to Moscow. I didn't know if Pope Francis was going to Moscow. Does anybody know the answer to that? I actually didn't know that. I will tell you what, though. Maybe I can bring it up here, but people forget one of the things that Pope Francis did with the Russian patriarch. I'm just trying to pull it up here. Sorry, my keyboard's far away. And Russian, here it is. So there was the joint declaration. I don't know if you remember this. This was the joint declaration between Pope Francis and Patriarch Kirill, okay? So the head of the Russian church. And it was the first time, it says here, Wikipedia obviously has problems, but this is just basic facts. This is the first time leaders of the Catholic Church and the Moscow Patriarchate had met. And he doesn't say in how long, but I don't know if it had ever happened. That's like in a really, really long time. Now, they didn't heal the schism stuff. But what did they talk about? If you actually go down, you'll see that one of the things that they talked about right here, one of the things they spoke about, the issues of the schism within the Orthodox community in Ukraine, the conflict between Ukraine's Catholic and Orthodox Christians, and the political situation in Ukraine that was raised in sections. Anyway, this Ukraine-Russia Catholic Church thing, we've kind of forgotten about this. I mean, how would this have been on anyone's radar regarding the consecratory situation we saw, the consecration of Russia, the Immaculate Heart? I mean, this stuff would have never been on our radar at that time because, I mean, who can see? But this is one thing I've been trying to say about whether or not the consecration was valid or not. Again, I believe it's valid, but one of the things I've been trying to say is, when we see Russia converting, all that means is that the Russian church will become in union with Rome. That's what that means. It doesn't mean that every single Russian person becomes a devout, pious Catholic. Okay, Russia has a national church. If, as we see here in this declaration, okay, this obviously had nothing to do with bringing the churches together in an official sense, but they discussed the issues of schism within the Orthodox community in Ukraine. Why would they discuss that? Why would that matter? Because the Pope wants to see the churches unified. And the one thing we can say about Francis, regardless of his issues, he's willing to overlook a lot of stuff to bring unity, which again is a problem when, it's like, how can you have, holy bishop like Athanasius Schneider and Cardinal Supich like on the same, do they even belong to the same religion? You know what I mean? Like it's not even comparable. But it takes someone who has the ability to go out there and really try to find a way to go past differences, which can be a problem if the differences are significant enough that it's wrong to commune with that person. But it takes someone like that. So Pope Francis has had a history. I mean, that meeting that they had in Havana between the Russian Patriarch and Pope Francis in 2015 was extraordinarily significant. Just the fact that they got in the same room. I mean, talk to your Russian Ortho bros about what they think about the Catholic Church. The fact that they were able to even get in the same room and breathe the same air with each other was unbelievable. And that has large significance, I think. So if Pope Francis's consecration was valid, then, Russia converting, it means that the Russian church becomes in union with the Catholic Church. And this is actually pretty simple to do. There was a podcast with, I recommend after this one, everyone go watch this Matt Fradd podcast that he did with Father Capis or Caps. He's a great Ruthenian, I believe, Byzantine Eastern Catholic priest. And he was talking about how various Orthodox sees have come in communion with Rome. It's actually much more complicated whether various ones are in schism. It's above my pay grade, but I find it fascinating. And it was as simple as the local bishop, or no, it was as simple as the priests agreeing to, or the local bishop agreeing to be under the jurisdiction of the Pope. Like that was it. And they would kept their right. They even were able to keep in their canon saints who were made saints after 1054, after the official date that's used for the schism, although that's much more complicated than that date. The only saints that had to be omitted in certain cases were ones that had formally published works where they denied the papacy or something like that. That's it. So even if there were saints that like spoke fire and brimstone from the pulpit or something like that about like beware of Rome, but they were saints in the Orthodox Church, if they didn't formally publish anything that was saying this is the theology and why it's wrong, and they were in the canon, they were kept. Pretty fascinating stuff. I know there are issues with the Orthodox Church. You know, they'll talk about the differences between, they talk about, for example, they use contraception. To be honest, the Orthodox are not really unified on that. And their understanding of contraception could easily be supplanted by using natural family planning. It really could, because when you actually look into how the Orthodox okay something like that, it's supposed to be basically used in like a grave necessity for health and for the good of the family or something like that. And essentially, you know, how you would have recourse to natural. So it's not as if there's this, it's not as if there's this promotion of contraception. It's really not that simple. And even the fact that they have divorce, they kind of do and they kind of don't. I remember watching this American Eastern Orthodox priest talk about America. There, White Wolf in the chat here says natural family planning is contraception. That's not true, and it's not good to say things like that because there are grave reasons that people have where they have health problems, really grave health problems for the mother, and it actually takes a lot of self-control for a couple to have recourse to natural family planning. It really does, and people can abuse it, but there is heroic virtue in a lot of people who do that. So that's not really fair to say. There is a contraceptive mentality that many people use to justify using natural family planning. But as far as the divorce goes, look into how they view it. In the Russian Orthodox Church, it's 3 strikes, you're out. Now, that sounds so silly, but when you actually look at how can you be approved for a divorce by the church, it's very much like an annulment. They just use different terms, and then they'll deny purgatory, but say when you die, there are prayers to be said, you know, not for purification, but sort of, you know. Anyway, my point is, it's actually in some ways really strange how we could think that the Russian church could come into communion with Rome, but it's also in some ways very simple. Anyway, this is completely off topic as far as Pope Francis resigning. Mainstream outlets, again, as a journalist, I trust that this is pretty legit. I don't know, it wouldn't be published otherwise. They have too much. Again, I know the mainstream journalists are shameless as far as their bias, but as far as the facts that they include in their bias, if that makes sense, they have a lot of journalistic integrity, and they have to by law. And everyone has to play that game. That's just how it is. So, in any case, Pope Francis is probably resigning. Looks like it. It might be not so, because this could be a whole diversion, but it looks like it's pretty legit. So if I were you, or if you were me, or whatever, I'd recommend starting to think about praying for the next pope. If you're joining us right now and you're asking when is he resigning, you have to go to the beginning of the stream and you'll see it. We talk about it there, and I show a bunch of articles that have come out from. And Superior Audio says, who is the probable next pope? I have no idea. Tagle. The Filipino guy, I remember there was rumors about him. Uh, you know, one of the things that I've thought has been interesting about um, Pope Francis's selections of cardinals and bishops, as he goes out to the periphery, what he's actually doing is he's going to the most socially conservative countries on earth. India has really bad theological training, sadly, in their seminaries, and so does Philippines. But I mean, he's gone out to some of the most socially conservative places on earth, and he has made cardinals. Um, Sarmad says, um, next pope is Wilton Gregory. It could be. The Kennedy Report. Do you think the next pope will be better? I have no idea. But there have been, listen, look through church history. There are times when look at the pornocracy, like in the, and we have sort of in the part of the Middle Ages era. I mean, it's called the pornocracy. The popes basically ran a brothel, and it's disgusting. How on earth do you go from that to St. Pius V or whatever comes after? I mean, it's miracles. The office that the grace of the office is not something to just say, well, he's a bad guy. It's much more complicated than that. When a man is ordained, when a man is consecrated, when he's elevated, when he puts on a crown or a particular hat and he sits in a certain chair and he says certain prayers, it's like, whoa, the effect of one honest prayer on a man's life and the people praying for him, we have no idea what that will be. And we've seen this many times in church history. So I don't know how on earth would I know who the next pope would be. But whether or not the next pope will be better or not, I have no idea. I believe the consecration was valid. I do. And I believe that the promises will be fulfilled at some point. And one of the things I said in another video is that has to be in line with people's free will and providence. So however we're going to get to that point, it's going to be a matter of individual people taking individual steps and making individual decisions, that in this butterfly effect realm of providence of one thing affecting another, we're going to be in a position and go, wow, how do we get here? And we look back and we connect the dots, kind of like when we see this providential meeting between Pope Francis and the Russian Patriarch in 2015. I mean, that was, it was sold almost as like a social justice meeting. But when you look into what they actually talked about, it's like they're talking about the situation in Ukraine and the schism in the churches and the unity of the various churches in Ukraine. And then a few years later, this conflict heats up, and then we have this consecration. I mean, these things are not unrelated. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and block this one person because it's very annoying. And this is a good question. If I may ask, how do we explain Russia attacking Kiev again? I don't know. I mean, again, there's no guarantees of what it'll look like when the consecration happens. There's no evidence that we were told by Our Lady or anyone involved in the official approved revelatory aspect of Fatima messages that the consecration would happen and then it would be bang, everything's peaceful. That's nowhere in the revelations. It's not. So it could be 100 years. But people, I know that there's lots of reasons to believe. There's a lot of reasons to believe. You're welcome for getting rid of the one interesting fellow in the chat. I think I've had that guy blocked from other shows I've been on. There are reasons to believe that Our Lady, she wanted it to be clear that it was her who did it. But let's be honest. Like Pope Francis, if the consecration he did was valid. I mean, I was talking to an Orthodox friend of mine. He's a really good friend and a wonderful guy. And he was like, Kennedy, he's very skeptical on Fatima, of course, because, he's Orthodox. But he says, Kennedy, the churches will reunite when Jesus comes back. And that's, humanly speaking, that's exactly correct. There's no way to go through it. I mean, it's a really complicated situation as far as egos and psychology is concerned. The estrangement of the different cultures and things over the years has been severe. There's a lot of resentment. But it's as simple as the Pope and the patriarchs swiping a pen and having some agreement where the language works out that they can both be together. There were moves made towards this under, Pope John Paul II. No, Our Lady of Fatima did not say that the conversion of Russia would be instantaneous. This is impossible. How on earth would you have the conversion be instantaneous? People's free will is negated? Like it happens and then it's like a magical spell and boom, everybody's like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, that just doesn't make any sense at all. Okay. Any other questions? No? Markitect says, I don't think we've reached rock bottom yet. Better chance if the Pope after next being Pius the 13th, or I don't know what that means. Yeah, maybe we haven't reached rock bottom. I have no idea. Okay. Anyway, this is a bunch of speculation. Pope Francis looks like he might be resigning according to some official sources. So there you go. And we'll finish with this. Joe Capello says, praying that the new Pope will bring back the traditional Roman Latin. Right. Yeah. Well, it's God's will. You can't stop God's will from... You can't stop God's will from happening. So, last one here. Any idea of a timeline for resignation? Well, I mean, the meetings, I would imagine it would be in August. I mean, if he's going to make that trip to the same place where Pope Benedict did, where it was very soon before that, very close to when he resigned. It's very strange to be working at that time of the year in Rome. And one of the reasons is Italy is just oppressively hot in Rome at that time. It's like unbelievable. And if he's going to visit there and it's going to be the cardinals are, put in and things. And don't think that just because someone's been named a cardinal that they'll be actually made a cardinal. Von Balthasar, I think, died like the day before or something. Like it was 2 days before. Which is, pray for his soul. He was a mixed character theologically, but it would have been bad if he was a cardinal because he had a lot of modernist leanings in his work. It was almost like mercifully he was spared or something, so he'd have less responsibility to answer for. So I think, yeah. And John Johnson says Kiev was involved in the third secret. I've heard that, but I can't verify that. Anyway, okay. Thank you to everybody. Please like and subscribe to this video. There is a way to support the show. I know not everybody wants to do Patreon. I get that. But one of the ways too is by going to our sponsor, Noble Gold, which is in the description. I don't have to be a financial guru to know that gold is probably a good investment. It's a way of hedging your bets when a lot of things are volatile. Again, Joe Biden and Trudeau are your leaders. So, probably not the best economists. In addition, though, there's an option on YouTube to press thanks. It's just you give thanks. YouTubers, obviously, there's a way to do it where you don't want to try and be just too much of a salesman, but we do take time away from our families and we took time researching these things and put money into equipment. So, thank you to everyone who supported us. Being a patron is the easiest way to have a recurring donation, but you can also just in our YouTube server here, you can actually click. There's a button for giving thanks, which is donate whatever you want. And there's also an option to donate in the description through our website. You can use Stripe. I know not everyone likes using PayPal, so we have a Stripe option there as well. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, pray for Pope Francis. I mean that. He's the Pope. Pray for him. Pray for his soul. Pray for his conversion. Pray for the conversion of Russia. And pray for the next Pope because we might have him by the time the leaves start changing their colors in September. This has been the Kennedy Report. Until next time, God bless.